Well, it's only Thursday again. Seems like only yesterday I did the last show. This is November the 5th. This is the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name is Thomas Williams. Sit back. This is a reality and truth in bucket load show. Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. Hard-hitting show tonight. What is real, what is not, what is reality, what is not, what is truth, what is not. Right, let's get into it. This week, Project Veritas filed a lawsuit against the New York Times for their defamatory articles attacking Minnesota's ballot harvesting story. And Project Veritas also released screenshots of every claim they believe to be deceptive on part of the New York Times. And Mr. O'Keefe said there was absolutely no deceptive editing done in the videos, and the rampant ballot harvesting fraud taking place in Minnesota was crystal clear for all to see. Unlike what Greta Thunberg states and many other clowns, between October the 20th and October the 26th, the United States set 3,434 new daily low record temperatures versus the 517 maximum. 234 new monthly low temperature records versus just the one maximum, as well as 114 all-time low temperature records against the zero maximum. Now, for decades it's been hammered into us that extreme cold events and severe snowstorms will be a thing of the past, that a steadily warming world will see the back of record-breaking lows and all-time heavy snows. But now, after an undeniable increase in Arctic outbreaks over recent years, some members of the AWGW party have felt the need to tweak the narrative. Winter has knocked in North India, including Delhi. Scientists from the Meteorological Department of India said the national capital recorded a minimum of 12.5 Celsius on Thursday, and October has not seen such a low temperature in the last 26 years, and this was observed due to the light layer of clouds and a slow wind. Now, according to the IMD, the normal minimum temperature this time is 15 to 16 centigrade. Also this week, when the mainstream media declare a sign on a college campus wall saying it's okay to be white and declare it as a hate message, you know they are running programs of division and the world is going completely mad. In the UK, Boris Johnson has announced a second national lockdown for England, allegedly to prevent medical and moral disaster for the NHS. He said Christmas may be very different. Yes, it will be. But he hoped to take an action now would mean families can gather. I wouldn't count on it. Pubs, restaurants, gyms and non-essential shops will have to close for 4 more weeks from Thursday, and there's that magic measuring tape and time piece again from the virus. But unlike restrictions in spring, schools, colleges and universities can stay open, which defies logic and belief and is more stupidity. After December the 2nd, the restrictions would be eased and regions would go back to the tiered system. And Mr. Johnson said Christmas is going to be very different this year, perhaps very different. But it's my sincere hope and belief that taking tough action now, we can allow families across the country to be together. Don't count on it. If you want to see the difference of what can be said by a Prime Minister and a former Prime Minister in the UK, go and check out Theresa May's last speech in Parliament. It hit the nail on the head. Your politicians are told what to say and do, and the sooner we realise that, the better. Also this week, FedEx leaders discussed in a virtual event how innovations like robotic arms at the Express World Hub in Memphis and the delivery robot Roxo, automation at FedEx ground facilities and a Mercedes-Benz collaboration will help the company move forward amid the COVID-19 pandemic and the flood of packages. Robot army, here we come. That's part of the lockdown. Get rid of the staff, rolling the robots. Tyranny on the streets of the UK as the initial army experiment that went onto the streets didn't receive too much kickback, and so they roll out onto the streets. They are now mass testing, all enforced by the army, whole cities at a time, and the first stop is Liverpool in the UK. Now traditionally that is a hotbed of people who speak up, and yet curiously quiet in recent times. Now is not the time to be quiet. And as for the rest of the UK, if you don't stop what is happening in Liverpool now, you are all next. I'm pleased to hear many of our members have been sharing Monday's show and letter contained within the show done by the New South Wales Police Department in Australia. Reports of it being shared with other police departments in several countries have come in since Monday. And it's all good stuff. And it's time we rebuild our communities with the police. We have a common enemy here that is fighting hard to ruin us all with their psychotic agendas. But the police have an added agenda now to work with we the people. 1, we are stronger in terms of solidarity and conviction. 2, in terms of numbers and support. And C, cops will all be replaced by robots unless we act now. Not tomorrow, like the RV, 2 weeks, like Drake, or the latest weight club this coming Monday or Tuesday now. And I mean, now. United we stand, divided we fall. I got a report this week from one of the members that they have contacted some highly respected Indigenous elders about the up-and-coming event at Uluru. And they are aware of what is going on and are warning people about the many dark agendas. Good stuff. What people have to realise over there is some of your ancestors have done enough damage to we the people on this planet 16,500 years ago. With your Kalima and sacrificial obsessions, and we will not allow you to cause further damage. We broke your stupid ceremonies with a revocation last year. This time we mean business in far greater scope. Message to the Indigenous dark forces, including Sasha Stone. We are coming for you, and we will counteract your stupidity, and there will be consequences of your actions on that. Well, Trump not winning the election. Oh my. Just as we warned of. And in the scheme of things, it really doesn't make a great deal of difference. Neither are fit to govern, and neither have shown to be for them by the people. There is corruption on both sides. It's two faces of the one coin, and the lesson from it all is, we the people have to come together and build an alternative solution for our government, country and people. Trump can barely complain about voter fraud when, according to the trustee, she fixed the last election in his favour. And now you know why they argued over the Supreme Court nominees. It is all staged, managed to me. Over 100 million never voted in the last election, and was the leading figures by far. What has changed for them 48 months later? Nothing. What has changed for the 130 million who did vote? Nothing. And unless you're doing Common Core maths, nothing plus nothing equals nothing. Nothing has no value. We the people do. We just forget to remember that fact. Our only solution is a long-term plan is to build the People's Club. We've had enough of weight clubs, be it NESARA, RVs, trusts, birth certificate funds. Just us, and we build the network. We can sit around and accept the forecasted cries of election fraud or build something new. But yet again, this country has proven to be incompetent on many levels, and the whole world sees us now as one giant joke. And we can all point fingers at the politicians, but it's we the people who are really responsible for the mess, due to dissolving our own responsibility. It's too easy to pass on responsibility to a few select others. Why do people do that? So nothing wrong can then be apportioned to themselves. But it was wrong to pass on that responsibility in the first place. Do you not see that now? As Trump is poised to lose an election, replicating Hillary losing a one-horse race 4 years ago, I look back on the last 4 years that I personally had a close involvement in, and Kim and I together had a heavy input into. This is a president that was given access to files way above his own pay grade. No other president has received that. Kim sent top-level files to expose all of the corruption. Trump did nothing. Kim declared American sovereignty. Trump did nothing. Trump complained about the fake news. I personally went through a 340-plus page document called the Telecommunications Act of 1934 and gave him 15 loopholes to close down the mainstream media within an hour. Trump did nothing. Kim, I and the team worked on a tax reform and was deposited into a bill in January 2019. This would have deleted all taxes on your wages and salary, reduced all taxes and put more money in your pocket to improve the economy, and more money in the government's pocket to look after the country better. Trump did nothing. Kim gave him a solution to end the Federal Reserve, IRS and the Crown rule. This would have ended the hijacking of American finances, created new jobs, America would have had a national bank, and the IRS reformed away from being crooks for the Crown in Puerto Rico to the original tax revenue division that has lain dormant since 1933. Trump did nothing. Kim gave him a solution to building the wall and how to protect the money. Trump lost it, and Trump did nothing. Kim cleaned up all the banks, back system, agency and military systems and gave Trump access he is not allowed to have. Trump did nothing. Kim, I and the team did an overhaul of the FEMA disaster relief programme, and it would have replaced it with no cost to the government, created thousands of new jobs and stopped the corruption. Trump did nothing. We warned Trump about Mnuchin and Kushner committing acts of treason against the country and told them they need to be fired. Trump did nothing. Well, actually, he appointed Kushner into more prominent positions. When Trump stated he wanted to bring home all the American troops, we informed him why that couldn't happen immediately, and I provided a solution to bring them all home, all funded by the trust. Trump did nothing. Trump was told to cancel the election until the COVID BS of lockdowns and masks were removed. Again, under the Emergency Act, it is a valid reason. Simple solution to the Democrat-led lockdowns and masks. No election until it's all back to normal. Trump did nothing. So you want to know why Trump is potentially losing or lost the election? There is your answer. I warned of this over a month ago and people said it could never happen. Well, now we stand on the brink of it has. And I'm not interested in dodgy counting, fake ballots, 125% turnouts in counties and states. It's all irrelevant and has gone on in every single election. And you, Mr. Trump, gained benefit from that 4 years ago. So let's not use that shit as an excuse. It's childlike. You had 4 years to curtail and stop that nonsense and failed to deliver. Despite a plethora of promises from Q, nothing concrete was delivered, and that includes the wall. Pardon the pun. The Dems have won or are winning because Mr. Trump sold his main support down the tube in an air of arrogance and ego. Not to mention the two people who gave him so much help for no pay and no little flack for doing so either. That town hall debate where Trump dismissed QAnons to protect himself from portal people flack, after he allowed the media to go unhindered for 4 years, was costly. The media and the Dems won the war for the minds and subsequently the narrative. But you, Mr. Trump, and your Q people failed badly and ultimately sold your own followers down the Delaware River. You just cannot do that and expect to retain people's support. You have to remember the QAnons, people like myself and our listeners, run the gauntlet every single day from the masses of sheep bots who wouldn't know the truth if Jesus came back down and told them. We have to face the ridicule every single day with an army of agency bots on the computer creating discord, ridicule and slander. And you, Mr. Trump, dismissed all of that support in one interview after nearly 4 years. Shameful. You bowed to the pressure of the treasonous media that day, allowing psychopaths and bots to call the shots. The shot went around the world that day, and you fired it. And fired the QAnons in one cowardly interview. A reminder of your show The Apprentice, where you used to call the shots and say your catchphrase, "You're fired." This time you fired yourself. The consequences now are wide-ranging. Your legacy will be seen as a failure, because you to date have not shown the required backbone to make America great again. In overview, you sold it out to Langley clowns and Israel agitators. One consequence of Trump losing this election now is, where does that leave Kim Go-Gwyn, the trustee? Because I can guarantee you the Democrats will not work with her one iota. Pelosi, Clinton and Obama all hate her with a passion. And her position now is essentially and potentially now an impotent one for at least 4 years. One hopes she uses the next 4 years to listen to what people are telling her and have told her, and come back stronger and prepare for something in 4 years' time. Crying and sullying over the past helps no one. Mistakes were made, some bigger than others, but they are not for covering up. They need to be spoken out, apologised for, and move on and forward with a change of mindset from the one to being part of the all. The one has failed. The collective has never been tried on a mass scale, but now more than ever is the time to do it. Saviour programmes failed again, like all have gone before. We save us, not I, but we, not the few, but the all. Many will feel down with the result and feel all is lost, but in overview, all is won. Why? Because the weight club distractions of Trump, Q and the trustee that has dominated the last 4 years is now rendered mute. Now, as THI has stated all along, we have to fix it, not them. We didn't wait around, we built our foundation. The People's Club came up with the $1 or more programme to fix things ourselves. We have helped, supported, taught, trained and elevated people. We didn't solely rely on Kim. We built it ourselves. And we can sit around and mope or build a people's network over the next 4 years, ready for the next elections. And just maybe with enough support and cohesion, we could have our own candidates. And I'm calling on all the alt media groups to get behind this. It is our only solution now. A network of common law, natural law, think tank groups, healthy living groups, food-based groups, solution-based groups that would evolve into a separate group from the current People's Club into a People's Club party. For and by the people. Enough of this rivalry of our group is better than your group and childlike division. We built the People's Club with an adult mind for all of the people. Forget your ego. This is my group. And think like an adult of this could be our group. The people need a collective voice, a power base, a support base that operates for and by the people. We will not do that in a plethora of separate groups, many doing the same things, some just copying others' ideas, which is for their own ego. We will only do that coming together for the first time in history. A group solely operated by the people, for the people, and for the power of the people. Right, a good news story to start off this section of news. More than 100 human trafficking victims were rescued this week following a statewide anti-human trafficking crackdown called Operation Autumn Hope, according to the Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost, who announced it on Monday. The operation was made up of over 50 police departments in Ohio and several social services agencies that provided resources to the victims. Now, Operation Autumn Hope was carried out for 4 key priorities: rescuing victims of human trafficking and referring them to social services, recovering missing and exploited children, apprehending those who seek to have sex with a minor, arresting male Johns seeking to buy sex. And it said every agency on this team looks for the day when no person is bought and sold in Ohio. And don't buy sex in Ohio, Yost said. In total, 109 men, women and children were found during the operation. Across southern Ohio, 76 missing and exploited children cases were cleared, including 45 by physical recovery by the U.S. Marshals Service. Among those found was a 15-year-old girl from Cleveland whose recovery linked her and other possible victims to an individual in Columbus suspected of human trafficking. In Cuyahoga, Franklin and Lucas counties, 157 men were arrested on charges of soliciting and other crimes, a component of Operation Autumn Hope focused on reducing the demand for sex. The Mahoning Valley Human Trafficking Task Force and Franklin County Sheriff Office Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force arrested 22 people accused of seeking sex with a minor. Those who were charged with felony counts of importuning, attempted unlawful sexual conduct with a minor and other charges included a pastor, student and a rehabilitation resident advisor. And those who were charged with soliciting and other charges included a fireman, an attorney and also a motivational speaker. Oh dear. The United States on Wednesday formally left the Paris Agreement, a global pact it helped forge 5 years ago to avert the threat of catastrophic climate change. Yeah, right. Now, the move, long threatened by US President Donald Trump and triggered by his administration a year ago, it wasn't, it was us, further isolates Washington in the world but has no immediate impact on international efforts to curb global warming. You best change your plans because it's cooling. Still, the UN agency that oversees the treaty, France as the host of the 2015 Paris talks, and 3 countries currently chairing the body that organises them, Chile, Britain and Italy, issued a joint statement expressing regret at the US withdrawal. Now, the next planned round of UN climate talks takes place in Glasgow, Scotland in 2021. And at present, 189 countries have sold their people and countries out to have ratified the accord. This is just one of the few things Trump listened to and acted upon. And that reasoning behind that decision came from our input. The Paris Climate Agreement is about stealing the country's resources. All your resources go to the UN and 2% of your country's funds go to NATO. That is what's hidden in that agreement. Turkish members of the Nationalist Movement Party have condemned the French government's decision to ban a pan-Turkish nationalist group known as the Grey Wolves. Well, the Grey Wolves came up in a recent Zoom call, if you remember correctly or not. And on Monday, French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin announced at a National Assembly meeting about the country's fight against Islamist militants that the cabinet will consider banning the Turkish right-wing group when it meets on Wednesday. Hüseyin Sözlü, a member of the MHP, strongly condemned the proposed ban by sharing a photo of the French government embracing PKK terrorists in the Elysee Palace, arguing that the apparent hypocrisy exposed Europe's ambivalent attitude. And Sözlü also joined in criticism by Turkish nationalist Adem Taşkıya, who posted that in response to the ban, soon France's government will fall, and urging President Emmanuel Macron to take precautions with his mind. Now, the Grey Wolves, established by the National Movement Party founder Alparslan Türkeş in the 1960s, has been involved in particularly aggressive incidents in France in recent weeks, according to Darmanin. And last week, French media reported that the group's name and pro-Turkish slogans had been inscribed on an Armenian memorial near Lyon. Now, tensions have been growing between France and Turkey since Macron pledged a crackdown on radical Islam, all at the request of Mr. Netanyahu, I might add, following the murder of a French teacher by a Chechen Islamist on October the 16th. Macron also defended the publication of cartoon depictions of the Prophet Muhammad as freedoms of expression, which drew harsh rebukes from Turkey's President, Mr. Erdogan. And the French government has since increased its efforts to tackle militants and extremists in the past month, including banning a group named after Sheikh Yassin, who is a co-founder of the Hamas movement. I said Turkey, along with Japan, would be key hidden countries that play a big role in the scheme of things around the world about 6 years ago. Turkey needs to be monitored closely, as it is the gateway of East to West. Finally, she turns up again. After we exposed her last year, sometime around this last year, she kind of publicly went missing for 12 months. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib on Friday introduced a bill to create a federally chartered and supported public banking system. They make it out that they're doing this for the first time, but this was their alternative to the trust plan of nationalising banks 2 years ago. And like a loop, they roll it out as something new, as not enough remember the past. Called the Public Banking Act, the bill would develop a system through which the Federal Reserve System and Treasury Department would recognise, offer grants and open credit facilities for non-profit banks. Our plan was to end the Fed and the Treasury and build a national bank and restore Treasury to its original version prior to the financial hijacking of the Federal Reserve and the Crown people. So these two Obama clowns drew up an alternative that all sounds better for the public, but it's just new boss, same as the old boss. And they said these banks would be intended to compete with the commercial banking industry and would be barred from charging fees on checking or savings accounts, requiring minimum balances and levying interest rates of more than 15%. Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez said the bill is intended to expand access to financial services in areas where a large portion of the population is unable to afford conventional banking services. The real purpose of that, and behind this exercise, is to stop people holding cash outside of their system. They said nearly 30% of those without bank accounts cited an inability to meet minimum balance requirements as the main reason they did not use a bank, and that was according to a survey done last year. Nearly 49% it was at least a contributing factor. From overdraft fees to charging for having a checking account, Wall Street-run banks put key financial services out of the reach for many of my residents who are struggling to make ends meet, Tlaib said in a statement this week. And they said the bill is also intended to give local governments, community development projects and small businesses easier access to loans and federal financial relief programs as they grapple with the damage wrought by the virus pandemic. Do you really believe all this shit? I don't. And the creation of public banks will also facilitate the use of public resources to construct a myriad of public goods, including affordable housing and local renewable energy projects. Public banks empower states and municipalities to establish new channels of public investment to help solve systemic crises. And they do that now at election time. It will be rolled out again in 4 years' time. Nothing changes. They put all these promises and it all sounds all lovely, love and light and all this crap. But it goes nowhere. Why? Because it's something to help the people. And they only want to help the people by lying to the people leading up to an election. Because once that election's decided, then they go back to hurting the people. Oh dear, here we go again. Jews across the world are being urged to pledge donations to a project raising money for the State of Israel. Really? And the target is to raise $600 billion for causes in the occupation state. The project has been launched by pro-Israel lobby groups, the Jewish Federations of North America and Jewish Future Pledge. Now the JFNA represents 146 Jewish federations and over 300 community networks. Announcing the ambitious project earlier this week, it said that it had partnered with JFP in calling on all Jews to pledge that half or more of the charitable given in their estate plan will support the Jewish people and or the State of Israel. The project's promotional video claims that Jews are heirs of the most influential people the world has ever known, before warning that more and more young people are walking away from Judaism. The film also claims that Jewish organisations are struggling to raise funds and attract the next generation of donors. It then urges American Jews to work to strengthen the bond between Israel and North America. A Take the Pledge website has been set up where signatories are asked to pledge that upon my passing, 50% or more of all my assets left for charitable purposes will be directed to efforts to strengthen and serve the Jewish people and or the State of Israel. Really? On its website, the JFNA says that it partners with the government of Israel and a variety of agencies to secure the Jewish state and claims to have lobbied Washington, D.C. to secure $10 billion in public funds that flow to Jewish communities. Moreover, the JFNA has given millions of dollars to Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories in recent years. Bearing in mind, all of Israel's settlements are illegal under international law. There's so much I could say about this one piece. The sheer arrogance of these people defies belief. And it's not all Jewish people either. Most of them are poverty-stricken, as we've covered in several shows. But I'm pleased to hear the youth of Israel are walking away from religion. The youth are walking away from all religious denominations now, and it's great to see. That programme creates division and external saviour programmes when the Saviour and God you look for is within you. But the guilt, pity party, shame-based programming still runs deep amongst the Jewish community. And my advice to them is, tell them to go and F themselves. If they want money, go and get $600 billion off the Rothschilds, the Black Sun, Gates, Kushner, Weasel, and a myriad of TV stars with fake names hiding the fact that they were Jewish, or the born in and born to rich people. They have all the money. And stop asking the predominantly poor Jewish people to fund tyranny, death and destruction. But at which point do we the people state these Jewish lobbyists and declare them as a racist hate crime group? Not to mention collusion operated. A dozen bodies have been unearthed in newly found mass graves in the Tarhuna region of western Libya. Now, this is where renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar forces launched an aborted assault in Tripoli last year. And a total of 98 bodies have been found since searches for mass graves were started after the withdrawal of Haftar's forces from western Libya in June. 4 new sites have been discovered, 2 of them mass graves and 2 individual graves in Tarhuna, and unidentified bodies have been exhumed. This is according to a specially tasked committee. Now, the committee was established by the UN-recognised Government of National Accord with a brief to search for missing people. And at least 16 more mass graves have yet to be unearthed, according to Abdel Hakim Abu Nama, who heads the non-governmental association of Tarhuna victims. Now, the warring factions in Libya signed a permanent ceasefire accord on Friday, following UN-sponsored talks in Geneva, and the UN expects further talks to set a date for national elections. Now, Libya has been embroiled in a civil war since the 2011 overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi, and the GNA rules from Tripoli in the west of the country, while the east is controlled by the self-styled Libyan National Army under Haftar. What you've got to remember is Gaddafi was a trustee, and he was also a paid CIA agent. Americans born in Jerusalem can declare Israel as their country of birth now in US passports. How can you declare a country of birth in an illegal state? Just saying. And this is according to the Trump administration in a reversal of US policy. Before now, Jerusalem was identified without a country because of its contentious status as Israel's self-declared capital. And the latest move further cements Donald Trump's 2017 recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the entire city. Palestinians claim the occupied East as the capital of a hoped-for state, and because that is their region. There is no country, or was no country, called Israel, ever. None. Zero. Zip. Nada. And President Trump's decision to recognise Jerusalem as Israel's capital broke with decades of US policy and was met with outrage across the Arab world. The issue of whether Jerusalem-born Americans had the right to declare Israel as their country of birth on their passports reached the US Supreme Court in 2015, and it ruled that it was not permissible, saying only the President had the right to effect the change. Courtesy of Kushner and the snake US Secretary of Deep State Mike Pompeo, who announced this new position on Twitter this week and saying it was consistent with Donald Trump's policy. I am happy to announce US citizens born in Jerusalem can now elect to list their place of birth as either Jerusalem or Israel on their passports. But he also stated, we remain committed to a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. They lie. Fact. They create it. Oregon this week became the first state to decriminalise hard drugs like heroin, cocaine and meth in a 59-41 vote on Wednesday morning, and the Drug Addiction Treatment and Recovery Act will transition Oregon's drug policy from a punitive criminal approach to a humane, cost-effective health approach. People suffering from addiction are more effectively treated with healthcare services than with criminal punishments, according to the bill. A healthcare approach includes a health assessment to figure out the needs of people who are suffering from addiction and includes connecting them to the services they need. Now, this is a move that I've called for many years. I put forward this solution way back in the middle 90s in the UK. And I also did it in a solutions piece in the show maybe a year, might be 2 years ago now. Because if it's done correctly, it will reduce usage. It will end gangsterism. It will generate taxes and it will heal people. And it also should be an opportunity to employ and train first counsellors who can then speak of the spiritual war and harvesting these drugs induce and the dangers that they do that can be lasting. Race issues is next. A young man has been jailed for 25 years for burning down 3 historic black churches in the US state of Louisiana last year. Holden Matthews, 23, was also ordered to pay $2.7 million in restitution. He said he had burnt the churches to boost his reputation within his favoured music scene, and the media was citing heavy metal music as the key problem. No surprise there. Now, a judge found the attacks had not been racially motivated, but said they evoked memories of a dark time in history. White supremacists attacked black churches during America's civil rights era. Now, the 3 churches Matthews burned were St. Mary's Baptist Church in Port Barre, Great Union Baptist Church in Opelousas, and Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, also in Opelousas, between March 26th and April 4th. Where do these people come up with this shit? And why do it? But in my opinion, let's take the individual detail out. The mainstream media created part of this problem, although I'm not in any way condoning the sheer stupidity of the person who did it. I said there would be an increase in racism, and it has unfolded entirely due to the media pushing race issues to levels not compatible to the general public life, aided and abetted by the Freemasonic elements within the police. Yes, we know what you do. Now, the sentence, I feel, is a bit on the ridiculous side. 25 years. Personally, I would have kept him locked up for 6 months and then make him work for free with the people in the black community to rebuild all 3 churches and let him and the black people sort out their differences. Young, impressionable and ignorant people do stupid things to impress their peers at that age, and taking 25 years of his life, when thankfully no lives were lost or injured, serves absolutely zero purpose. Next. When a young British Bengali woman with a black boyfriend got pregnant, her family's reaction forced her to confront their anti-black prejudices. And as she stomped away from her maternal home, Salma began tallying up her current status. 21, 2 months pregnant and now homeless. The door slammed shut behind her. And all because she was a Bengali woman insisting on having a baby with a black man. Now, in her community, Bengali women didn't have babies out of wedlock, let alone mixed-race, dark-skinned babies. That is their narrative. And her aunt had spent the morning urging her to get another abortion, just as she had done last time she'd fallen pregnant. But she was no longer 18, and what right did they have to make this decision for her? And she said, I was willing to do whatever it took to have her. Yes, that meant giving up my family, giving up my career, and giving up everything. But I felt I had no other option. And just before Salma had walked out of the house, she caught sight of her mum's tears splashing on her half-eaten roti. And I knew she was wishing that this had been a Bengali baby. Then she could have called up the boy's family, arranged a wedding, and legitimised the whole problem by the end of the day. But the father was black. So even before more relatives could turn up and weigh in on her life, Salma fled. She was not getting an abortion, and she couldn't stay with a family who didn't support her decision to have her baby. You see, racism applies to all of us. This media, Hebrew Anunnaki-led BS that racism starts and stops with white people is an illusion and total fabrication. Every colour is racist. And until we recognise that as a fact and stop pointing fingers away and point fingers back, we're always going to be divided. More race issues. The main protagonist, in my opinion. Israel's Strategic Affairs Ministry has launched a new campaign targeting online expressions of support for Palestinian rights. On Tuesday, 4IL, a propaganda outlet of the ministry, tweeted the handles of dozens of accounts it claimed were anti-Israel bots and trolls who try to steer public opinion. Touché. Report them right now, the Israeli government urged. The ministry also issued a report claiming it has examined over 250 accounts, of which 70% of them were found to be considered inauthentic. The report claims that the accounts were trying to stir anti-Israel sentiment online and manipulate discourse against Israel by, among other activities, promoting calls for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes at the International Criminal Court. Well, what's wrong with that? If they've committed war crimes, they've committed war crimes. Why are they blocked from anything? And the report said Strategic Affairs Minister Orit Farkash HaKohen, oh dear, it's a coincidence, called on Twitter in a letter to remove the problematic accounts. Only problem is, truth never fears investigation. And these Hebrew Anunnaki, one world government and religion clowns need to be told en masse to shut the fuck up and stop stifling First Amendment rights in this country. This country has been their bitches for far too long. Israel says jump, America says how high, and we have to stop this shit. We don't interfere what their country does. Well, in fact, we should do, because they're illegal. But how about imposing a reverse ban of all things Israel banned in this country until they respect human rights, property ownership, quit harvesting everyone, and quit their caliphate march across the Middle East? And for those who say that is racist, my reply is touché. Next category, fight back of the people. Earlier this year, Italy became the first entire nation to impose strict lockdown and social distancing measures when it was first to see the major coronavirus outbreak outside of Wuhan, China. And by the close of May, just as the United States took the lead globally in the number of confirmed cases, Italy's numbers had fallen and lockdown restrictions were dropped, in its daily infection rates remaining under control throughout the summer. However, the authorities stated that Italy's cases numbers began soaring once again starting September into this month, just as we forecast in Exposé 2, did we not? And there are violent protests now unfolding in Naples, Italy, and people are really angry at the new lockdown measures that have just been imposed. Local media dubbed weekend clashes with the police in Naples as appearing more like guerrilla warfare. Some of them, what do they call it? The ultras in southern Italy are fairly brutal. Naturally, government leaders are once again eyeing a total lockdown of the peninsula, but it is now evident many Italians aren't buying it anymore. And the Prime Minister, Giuseppe Conte, has just issued a new emergency decree for Sunday, which once again shutters all cinemas, theatres, gyms and swimming pools. And further bars and restaurants have been ordered to close by 6 p.m. every night. Curfew time. Well, this set off major protests across various cities, especially in Rome and Naples, which led to clashes with police over the weekend. Initially peaceful, and local media have described many demonstrations rapidly spiralled into fights with the police, led by hundreds of what they call far-right protesters. Far right, far left, far middle, far arse, if you ask me. And in Rome, fireworks were shot at the police trying to disperse a central plaza. Now, the mayhem is believed to be led by the right wing. Here we go, Verdi politics again. Forza Nova party, which called for the population to resist what it called health dictatorship and curfews. It's nice to see the people of Italy fighting back, but please stop the violence, looting or destruction of property. They use that against us. Another example of fighting back is a lawsuit was brought to the courts a couple of months ago and took place on the 21st of October. And the people who put it in said they've been waiting to hear from the judge on the decision. From California legislator Kevin Kiley's blog, today a California Superior Court ruled in favour of me and fellow legislator James Gallagher in our lawsuit challenging Gavin Newsom's abuse of power. The judge ruled Newsom violated the Constitution by issuing Executive Order N-6720. More importantly, she found good cause for an injunction restraining the governor from issuing any more unconstitutional orders. Now, the court rejected Newsom's extraordinary claim that a state of emergency centralises the state powers in the hands of the governor. If only Trump had used that state of emergency, we wouldn't be in this mess now. And this is the unlawful basis on which Newsom had collapsed California's system of checks and balances, issuing 57 executive orders and changing over 400 laws unilaterally. And this ruling now marks an end to Gavin Newsom's one-man rule. And it makes clear that the laws of the state of California do not countenance an autocracy under any circumstances, not for a single day, and certainly not for 8 months, with no end in sight. The ruling is tentative, meaning Newsom has a few days to try to persuade the judge to change her mind, but it's rare for a tentative ruling to change. And while Newsom can appeal, we are confident the decision is on solid legal ground and will stand, they say. Good stuff. This is an article I came across that carries much of the warnings given out by this show for many years now, and all laid out in one particular show called Clowns in Panic. And it's nice to see others are now seeing the dangers unfolding in front of us and highlighting it. So the article states it's now so obvious, but no one has more to gain with the lockdown and more to lose with its lifting than big tech. The lockdown destroyed small and medium-sized businesses, especially those that are in private hands. These were the real targets of the lockdown, private property. Collapse these businesses and you go at the heart of capitalism, private ownership. Once these were closed by government edict, the agencies then took control and put in place procedures that ensured these companies could never cope with the cost and layer of compliance required. Lacking scale and financial resources many simply closed for good. But that was the goal all along. Yep, we warned of that in Clowns in Panic. This was a billionaire's game and all the millionaires were going to get harvested. And that is what has taken place. And this remained so until only large businesses remain, those that will bend to the will of government and profit from this reduced competition. And large tech companies are in a unique position to exploit this vacuum because they can become the single source providers of everything. Hello, Amazon. And dictate time and price, points of sale, everything. Which explains why they have the most to lose from lifting the lockdown, because now everything has been priced into their stock. And their CEOs are not useful idiots, but willing accomplices of this dark arrangement, with those working in bureaucracy to further their push into everyone's life. So if you want to travel, get used to testing, tracking and vaccines. These carriers took money from government and now the government calls the shots. Whenever you take money from government, they own you. The same with big tech. They are now locked in tight to ensure that everything reported by the media via Twitter and GoOgle states that the virus is here to stay and people need to get used to it. The election gives them a perfect opportunity to trial run so many new initiatives that require we stay locked in and vote by mail. Next comes electronic voting from an app controlled by Apple. Group fairly close to us has an app controlled by Apple. There you go. The article said this is pure evil and why tech must be broken up. There are a lot of people beginning to question that big tech has been conspiring with this great reset, assuming they will fall within the Klaus Schwab's fourth industrial revolution, so they will be fine. They will certainly make fortunes from tracking devices, swapping to digital currencies, where they hope to replace the banks. For if you own nothing, you will also have no bank account, and banks will no longer be lending. And since governments will adopt modern monetary theory, they will no longer need the banks to sell their debt, since there will be none. When we look at the major bank stocks, the only one to peak with the Dow in 2020 was JP Morgan. When we look at Deutsche Bank and HSBC, they peaked in 2007, reflecting their problems. Goldman Sachs peaked in 2018, reflecting its problems in Asia. Behind the curtain, there is a pressure to not bail out the bankers again, and this is especially true in Europe. Now, the reason being is Bitcoin decentralization program. This is what we warned of, Clowns in Panic, as you will not need banks for fresh air tokens. The article said this leaves the idea of Schwab as very, very attractive and therefore crushing the economy and forgiving all debt to banks, so you will also own nothing. Forgive all outstanding debt and property ownership, Piketty's top recommendation, and you then just rent the place where you live from the government. There are major holes in this theory, but those aside, this explains why big tech will replace the banks. They fail to connect the dots that if you also own nothing, then that would apply to shareholders. Oops. And does that mean that big tech CEOs simply rise to the top like Russian oligarchs, and the companies become their personal wealth. We did warn about it. Some good news this week, as apparently there is still a pulse amongst liberty-minded citizens in one small North Carolina town that turned out in mass to defy the city's attempt to mandate mask requirements. When told they had to wear a mask to participate in the meeting, they refused, and the city council and local police backed down in front of the angry crowd. And this is the kind of action it's going to take across the country to stop this medical tyranny. Waynesville leaders backed down from a proposed local mask mandate Tuesday night after nearly 100 people packed the town hall to voice their opposition. Just 100 people. Oh my. Imagine if it was thousands or tens of thousands or millions. I told you, they cannot control the people if they all get together. Now, tensions rose before the meeting ever began when the assembled crowd, who were being held in the lobby until the doors opened, learned there wasn't going to be enough room for them all in the town boardroom. And those wishing to speak were told to fill out forms and wait until their name was called. We all know how that works. So this didn't sit too well with many in the crowd, who demanded the meeting be moved to the sidewalk outside so that everyone could see and hear it, touching off a loud chant of "take it outside." Town staff and police officers eventually quelled the crowd and convinced them that waiting for their turn to speak was the only option. Another uprising ensued after the waiting crowd was told they couldn't come in without a mask when their turn rolled around. The vast majority weren't wearing a mask, given the whole reason they were there in the first place was to speak against the proposed mask mandate. Now, some claimed exemptions for religious and health reasons, but others simply said they were not going to wear one and it would violate their rights to be denied entry to a public hearing on that grounds. In the end, masks were offered, but not compulsory. All people must do this, not just North Carolina. We have the power, not them. Their illusion of power is only derived by the complicity of we the people. Stop complying, stop social distance, and increase social dissidence. Next section of tonight's show is called COVID Fakery. We covered this piece on Monday, but we're going to repeat it again. And the Bernician COVID-1984 Freedom of Information request. UK government admits the virus doesn't exist. Oops. While preparing the court papers for the private criminal prosecution of MPs for the pandemic fraud, we have discovered that the Office of the Secretary of State for Mandatory Vaccinations has now admitted in a Freedom of Information request that they have no records which show that the cause of the COVID-19 virus has ever been proven to exist. The admission of guilt. To put this in perspective, this is akin to the UK banks admitting that they never lend any money, which is actually true. Banks cannot lend money. When we started alleging that against them more than a decade ago, It therefore doesn't take much effort to work out that the pressure of the private criminal prosecution has placed upon every serving MP has catalysed the beginning of the end for this treacherous Parliament one way or another. Moreover, since the UK government has confessed that they have no record of the existence of the cause of the supposedly deadly virus, upon which the validity of Parliament's COVID-1984 policies is entirely dependent, no MP is capable of successfully pleading not guilty to our allegations of pandemic fraud. DHSC holds no information on isolation of the SARS-CoV-2, which was the alleged cause of the pandemic. Nevertheless, here lies the very heart of the dishonesty which all COVID-1984 policies continue to be predicated upon. In short, the cause of the virus, and therefore the virus itself, have never been proven to exist, and everybody in the Department of Health knows it. Criminal law treats such evidence as proof of intent to commit fraud for material gain, especially when the Secretary of State in question, who has corporate interests in Big Pharma as PSC of Porton Biopharma Limited, is knowingly pushing the mandatory vaccination agenda for a virus that doesn't exist. That is what was uncovered in this lawsuit. The government in the UK cannot produce evidence, and there is no record of the existence of the cause of the virus. Let's talk about the blue masks, shall we? The typical blue masks worn by bots and others being coerced and forced into wearing them contain Teflon and other chemicals. 1. The masks are sterilised with ethylene oxide, which is a known carcinogen. Many teachers and various school boards have been experiencing significant symptoms as a direct result of the effects of this chemical. 2. The masks contain, not sprayed with, PTFE, which makes up Teflon along with other chemicals. Now, I've found and I've posted there is a US patent to allow manufacturers to use PTFE as a filter in commercial masks. But it also states breathing these for extended periods can lead to lung cancer. Don't agree? Go and argue with the experts at OSHA, which is the main US agency, Occupational Health and Safety Agency. These masks are meant to be worn only for short periods, like say if you're sanding a table for an hour and don't want to inhale sawdust. And they don't do anything whatsoever to stop the spread of any virus, and the emerging science of virology now understands that viruses aren't even passed person to person. Oops. And so those masks are completely useless against the virus and are also very dangerous. OSHA would never condone a person wearing a mask of this kind for anything more than the shortest of time. And rebreathing your own viral debris is dangerous to health, and the oxygen deprivation children suffer wearing such masks all day will certainly cause brain damage. So there you have it. Still want to comply with the government Milgram experiment as let's believe authority? Bollocks to that. Next section, exposures and exposés. We're going to Australia. Toby Kent, the Rockefeller-funded Chief Resilience Officer who is based in Melbourne, planned out over the past 5 years how to handle the city in the event of a pandemic. Rockefeller funded and started Strong Cities Network, and Melbourne has been their poster child since inception. Strong Cities is obviously the new smart cities. Linguistic programming again. Come and join our strong city, which appeals to the external tough people. Except strength is within, not external. But smart means clever. But smart also means to bring pain, a sharp sting. Sting being the operative word here. So Dan Andrews visited New York 3 years ago to learn about and then add surveillance structures and systems into Melbourne that complement the SCN strategies and system, and the completion of the installation of these systems has all taken place during the lockdowns. While the world sleeps, self-imprisons themselves and wears oxygen-depriving masks, they install tech to lock us all down further without the prying eyes of the selfie people. It's how they work. There has been a workforce in Australia from China installing them all, and a group of these workers have been staying at a suburban hotel right where I live in Melbourne. This is the person writing the article. I don't live in Melbourne. Some would like it. Some THI Australia would like that, but no. And the premise of SCN is that you surrender your policing policies to the network think tank. You surrender your policing policies to the network think tank, based, not surprisingly, in London, and they produce the guidelines for you. They also provide the troops and training on militia-style tactics. The knee on the neck is one of them, and the stormtrooper approach is another. But THI warned you of this, those in Australia, with the Chinese warships episode over 18 months ago, if memory serves me correctly. And we cannot keep ignoring the signs and the warnings, and then reacting when the shit unfolds. Now, the Rockefeller Foundation and the United Nations have multiple networks in place that deal directly with city mayors and leaders of LG municipalities, bypassing national and state structures, a form of infiltration so they do not have to go through normal layers of legal, moral and constitutional authority, and they cut through all the red tape. The longer term goal being to do away with government, as sovereignty and nationality are obstacles to a one world government, which is the ultimate and underpinning of the WEF, World Economic Forum, and the UN MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that they signed back in 2019. and essentially the WEF and UN are now essentially one overlord organisation. The first and most effective way to implement the One Government World agenda is first to get hold of and control the local police forces, which was successfully achieved in Melbourne recently. And the author of this document says all its facts are available online and from verifiable and also official websites. And it's all there in full view. You just have to be proactive and objective and emotionally detached from the truth to find it. And you won't hear this on your 6 o'clock news, as that would naturally spark riots and also pushback. The government is complicit and actually fund all of this, most unwittingly and likely to realise only when they're overthrown. They want the people to do that bit, and when they do, the One Government World is ready to step in and complete their vision and future view. Again, I did a piece probably 6 months ago, was it? Where I warned the government, the agencies and the police, they were all about to, including the banks, all about to be replaced. Did I not? It is worthy of note that the UN have officially tasked China with the job of collating all the world's data of human movement and activity, GeoInt, and so China will hold all data of all planetary human info. This was announced at the UNGA on the 22nd of September 2020. Also, China's richest man, Jack Ma, Callie Ma, along with Melinda Gates, is heading up the UN's digital cooperation programme, bringing all personal data of all people of the world into one central place, and that programme commenced in June 2020. China, the UN, World Economic Forum, Gates and Rockefeller, plus more, all working together to know everything about everyone on the planet, and with the capacity to control the people with resilient, well-equipped and well-trained militia-style police forces. And finally, you may be interested to know that Jack Ma and TikTok, the social media site, have donated over 3 million Australian dollars each to Melbourne's Doherty Institute vaccine research. Why so many questions for Dan Andrews? They will pop his eyes. Dan Andrews is on board with the entire programme. He is a globalist and a China servant. Again, not my opinion, all facts. You can all find online yourself at official and verifiable websites, except the Chinese workforce that's been in Melbourne. You'd have to sweet talk the hotel staff where they are staying, like I did, without even trying. So thank you for that report for Melbourne. This is what they're up to. The next piece is more proof of our From Russia with Love 7 episode, and it gives more background on the Clowns in America group. On February the 6th, 2017, WikiLeaks released documents detailing the CIA's espionage program in the months leading up to and following France's presidential election in 2012. The agency used spies and cyber weapons to infiltrate and hack into the major political parties with competing candidates, the Socialists, the National Front, and the Union for the Popular Movement. American collusion. I guess that's not as catchy as Russian collusion. And why, despite interfering in 81 countries' elections since World War II, nobody says anything. Now, their candidates, respectively, François Hollande, Marine Le Pen and incumbent Nicolas Sarkozy, were also spied upon individually, as were many other prominent political figures. And the objectives of the programme including ascertaining the contending parties' political strategies and platforms, their views on the US, and their relations with the European Union, with other European nations, particularly Germany and Britain, as well as Israel, Palestine, Libya, Syria and others. Now, the CIA's French operation lasted 10 months, beginning in November 2011 and enduring through September 2012, several months after Hollande won the election and formed a socialist government. Now, WikiLeaks' discourse of the agent's project bears a special irony. It was just as WikiLeaks published this material in 2017 that the CIA helped propagate unsubstantiated and later discounted intelligence that Russian hackers and propagandists were interfering with France's presidential election that year. Classic agency tactic that, and also used heavily in the alt media and politics of accusing others of doing what you or they have done. It's called reverse psychology, and the masters of it are the Jewish Holocaust industry. Now, similar allegations, also lacking in evidence, were floated as the European Union held parliamentary elections in May 2019. And as WikiLeaks reported, at the time of the releases on the CIA's covert activities in France, those revelations were to serve as context for its forthcoming CIA Vault 7 series. And WikiLeaks' apparent intent was to display a CIA's hacking operation in action. Now, Vault 7, the subject of the latest report on the history of WikiLeaks disclosures, stands as the most extensive publication on record of classified and confidential CIA documents. Never before and not since have the agency's innumerable programs and capabilities been so thoroughly exposed to public scrutiny. So the Vault 7 series contains the extraordinarily sophisticated inventory of cyber weapons that the CIA has developed to spy on or hack into the communications of any person or entity it targets, including reading our show page. Yes, hi. I've left you a message, just saying. Apart from the espionage function, certain of the programs in Vault 7, and this designation is WikiLeaks, not the CIA's, can also plant documents and data without being detected as the source. When, for example, the agency wishes to compromise an adversary via a false flag operation. But this is how they do this with the blackmail of politicians and other leading people. They can put all kinds of shit on your computer and you can't route it back to who did it. And then they blackmail you. This is what they do. Now, the program wherein this capability was developed is called Marble. May have been crucial to creating the orthodox narrative that Russia was responsible for the theft of Democratic Party emails in 2016. which is the cornerstone allegation in the construct we now call Russiagate. But it was the same clowns. Now, the CIA's development of its hacking capabilities began as a joint effort with the National Security Agency, but on the September 11th attacks and the subsequent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, begun in 2001 and 2003 respectively, and still hasn't ended, proved a turning point for the agency. And it was during this time that the CIA, as they put it, WikiLeaks puts it in the introduction to the Vault 7 series, the CIA gained political and budgetary preeminence over the NSA. That's similar to the Majestic program. The Navy gets more funding than the other military organisations because they're involved in the ET narrative. Now, according to former US intelligence sources, the CIA has invested some $175 billion in its vast variety of cyber programs in the post-2001 years. The agency's hacking division freed it from having to disclose its often controversial operations to the NSA, who was its primary bureaucratic rival, in order to draw on the NSA's hacking capacities. So the CIA was hacking the NSA and using their data as well, and bandwidth. All skullduggery and all faction fighting this reveals. And anyone who engages or works with or for the CIA ends up getting stiffed by them one way or another. And then we come to this. During the 1950s and 60s, the CIA turned increasingly to covert action in the area of student and labour matters, cultural affairs and community developments. The CIA subsidised, advised and even helped develop private organisations that would compete with the communists around the world. Many were US-based student, labour, cultural or philanthropic organisations whose international activities the CIA subsidised. The philanthropic CIA fronts used prior to 1967 funded a seemingly limitless range of covert action programs affecting youth groups, labour unions, universities, publishing houses and other private institutions in the United States and abroad. Support was provided to, for instance, an international organisation of veterans and an international foundation for developing countries, as well as an organisation of journalists and an international women's association. Agency funds were used to host foreign visitors and provide scholarships to an international cooperative training centre at a United States university. Take your pick. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, it's all Langley. The CIA assisted in the establishment in 1951 and the funding for over a decade of research institute at a major American university. By 1967, when public disclosure of NSA, which is National Student Association funding, not the agency, caused a major curtailment of these activities, and interest in the major covert action efforts in these areas was already waning. Now, there appear to be two reasons for this. First, there was considerable scepticism within the CIA as to the effectiveness of this approach. and Richard Helms explained, the clandestine operator is trained to believe that you really can't count on the honesty of your agent to do exactly what you want or to report accurately unless you own him, body and soul. I'll repeat that again. The clandestine operator is trained to believe that you really can't count on the honesty of your agent to do exactly what you want or to report accurately unless you own him, body and soul. That is MK Ultra admittance right there. And this is how they get ordinary people to do extraordinary and heinous things against their will. You've no idea the scope of MK Ultra. Second, it became increasingly difficult, Helms said, to conceal the CIA funds that supported these activities as the scale of the operations grew. By fiscal year 1967, for example, over $3 million was budgeted by the CIA for youth and student programs, and $6 million for labour programs. By 2018, the budget for youth and student programs has risen to $22.5 million and $45 million for the labour programs. And most of the funds were transmitted through legitimate or devised foundations, that is, fictitious entities established by the CIA. All of those organisations need to be shut down. In some cases repurposed, but most cases, in my opinion, deleted. But the use of philanthropic organisations was a convenient way to pass funds, in that large amounts could be transferred rapidly and in a form that need not alert unwitting officers of the recipient organisations to their source. In addition, foundation grants bestowed upon the recipient with the apparent blessing of the foundation. And the funding pattern involved a mixture of bona fide charitable foundations, Clinton, devised foundations and funds, and these are called CIA frontmen, drawn from a list of America's most prominent citizens and lawyers representing undisclosed clients. Now, the CIA's intrusion into the foundation field in the 1960s can only be described as massive. Excluding grants from the big three, Ford, Rockefeller and Carnegie, of the 700 grants, over $10,000 given by 164 other foundations during the period 1963 to 1966. At least 108 involved partial or complete CIA funding. More importantly, CIA funding was involved in nearly half the grants the non-Big Three foundations made during this period in the field of international activities. In the same period, more than 1/3 of the grants awarded by the non-Big Three in the physical, life and social sciences also involved CIA funds. Bona fide foundations rather than those controlled by the CIA were considered the best and most plausible kind of funding that covered for certain kinds of operations. A 1966 CIA study explained the use of legitimate foundations was the most effective way of concealing the CIA's hand, as well as reassuring members of funded organisations that the organisation was in fact supported by private funds. You know what? You can carry on, Americans, blaming Muslims, Russians, Chinese, Democrats, Republicans, or any other named boogeyman. But this show has warned of the fuck-off elephant in the room. Housed in this country and embedded like a virus into all other countries as the main source of the world's problem under the banner of Five Eyes. They all need to be closed down as a matter of urgency and national security, pardon the pun, CIA. They are a cancer on this planet, and unless that is treated quickly, it spreads like the fake COVID, which is, in part, their think tank creation as well. Right, let's have some word magic time again. The saying, cops are the law. They are law enforcement officers. And yet too few ponder on exactly what they're stating. In the past, they were policemen and women, and now they are officers. Why? Because officer is a corporate position is why. And so are they. Cops are the law. No, they're not the law. They are supposed to be there to uphold it, not be it. Big difference. Now, if only cops upheld the law for this lot. Can you imagine working for a company that has a little over 500 employees and at one point had the following statistics: 29 accused of spousal abuse, 7 arrested for fraud, 19 accused of writing bad checks, 117 have directly or indirectly bankrupted at least 2 businesses, 3 have done time for assault, 71 cannot get a credit card due to bad credit, 14 have been arrested on drug-related charges, 8 have been arrested for shoplifting, 21 are currently defendants in lawsuits, and 84 have been arrested for drunk driving. Can you guess which organisation this is? It's the United States Congress. And this is why we have to build a better way, with better people, better thinking, better actions and better solutions that combines the plethora of differing groups into one powerful group. And that group is the People's Club. This next section is called the People's Club Ideas and Solutions. We're going to be increasing this in the shows. But Anna von Reitz has been busy again, and amongst her personal barbs, she can at times talk a lot of sense. And she is, in my opinion, the most knowledgeable on law and the history of law on the internet. But it's just a shame she operates for the factions and bloodline families and not solely for and by the people, as she would be a great asset. But this is something to ponder on when creating assemblies. And don't rely on Tank to guide you to do anything right or useful. He is not capable. And it's important that the people do the right things and then organise in the right manner. Now, I have approached some groups about this in the past week, along the lines of developing the People's Club Natural Law Group, or committee for all involved in that exercise. Why do we have two groups doing assemblies? Why have two groups doing common or natural law? Why not combine them all into the one group under the banner of the People's Club, all whilst keeping your own allegiances to the groups that you're part of? If Anna von Reitz, Tank, Kim, John Darash and Kevin Annett are all for and by the people, this is the best and the only solution. 5 groups combined into one exercise wields power. Now, Anna von Reitz states, in addition to our lawful state assemblies, there are 2 kinds of district assemblies that are used and promoted by our foreign federal employees. And she said the key differences are that these assemblies are populated by territorial US citizens or municipal citizens of the United States, and are defined according to districts, as in District of Columbia, also known as voting districts. If you are a territorial US citizen, you should be participating in a district assembly. If you are a municipal citizen of the United States, or a federal corporation, or a corporate employee known as a citizen, you should be participating in another kind of district assembly clearly labelled as a municipal assembly. And everyone else, all of those who are not federal employees or dependents, need to be participating in the actual state assembly, which is organised according to counties, not districts. She says, okay, simple enough, district assemblies, both kinds, are foreign. No Americans should be participating in district assemblies unless, of course, those Americans are adopting the political status of federal citizens because they A, work for the US military, B, work for the federal civil service, or C, are political asylum seekers, and D, are dependents needing and seeking federal welfare. So if you're not receiving an unearned welfare check from the federales, and not employed by the federales, and not seeking political asylum in their jurisdiction, pay no attention to their district assemblies. Now, what I'm looking for now is perhaps someone outside of Anna von Reitz's group can look into whether this is the correct method to go forward with, and also report back on it. And the same thing applies to the UK. There are 3 separate groups in the MeWe chat doing common law. Why don't you all combine into one group under the banner of the People's Club UK, and then encourage others to join the network? These individual groups make 0 sense anymore. It's not worked. Share, combine, cooperate is the way forward. I had a pondering chat the other day, and the story of health costs came up, and ranges from $600 to $900 a month, I've heard. Some say more. But using those as an example, $7,200 to $10,800 per year. And the question to be asked is, how many times does those amounts get used? Do you get refunds if you don't? Clearly not. But the cost of American health treatment is almost as bad as the death rate of medical malpractice, which remains the third leading cause of death in America. Now in the UK we have a 12% wage deduction that pays for your national health care, your unemployment benefit and state pensions. Now some Americans think this is a big deduction to take from your wages, and yet curiously don't complain of the illegal, yes you heard that correctly, practice of charging you tax on your wages. Now with the bill that we put forward, and had it been signed off by Congress, it would eliminate the illegal payroll taxes forever. This then allows this health solution to thrive better. So as I say, some Americans think UK health is free. No. The ones who work pay 12% or thereabouts to cover these costs. But some Americans think that is excessive. But is it? Social Security is 6.2%. Medicare is 1.45%. So that's 7.65%. So just another 4.35% on top of that, and you get free healthcare. On $50,000 a year at 12%, that cost would be $6,000, which is less than the $7,200 or the $10,800 we mentioned earlier, paying for private healthcare. And that doesn't take into account the cost of paying deductibles on top of that. And this then ends the health disaster in this country of people tolerating illness and injury because of the frightening costs of obtaining basic health care. And quite frankly, it's barbaric and far from civilized. I would also have imposed a ceiling of 10% maximum profit on any medical item, be it a product or a service, and also reduce the CEO's salaries and perks below $200,000 a year. Above that is greed, not need. And health should not be a profit maker, and it is criminal in this country the profits made on people being sick and people losing their wealth and homes for medical bills. There has to be a better and fairer solution to the snake oil salesmen and middle management involved in and around our health industries. Another thing that cropped up is how easily we just accept things. Again, largely without thinking of the process we are actually doing, and we just go along with it. Take the IRS, for example. A shopkeeper collects taxes, pays an accountant to sort out the logistics of taxes, and then sends the county and state their tax receipts. Why are shopkeepers absorbing that time and energy to collect for an entity who would garnish your wages quicker than a public stimulus bill gets cancelled? Surely I feel that time and cost should be sent directly to the IRS or tax collectors for work done for their benefit, not yours. And this also doesn't just apply to shopkeepers, but all companies who collect taxes. You are providing a service for and by the IRS, and yet just accept you will not be reimbursed for your time and energy spent doing that service. What benefit do you get for doing that service? Why don't we let the IRS pay staff to collect the taxes themselves? Or allow the tax collector, which is you and us, to charge a fee for their time? You know, taxes time creates a lot of stress for the tax collecting public. And not only do you not get any recompense for that service, you are subjected to questioning for collecting it as well, via audits. Again, why do we tolerate this shit? And the same applies to jury service. You're out of pocket in most cases, sitting through various bad crime events, only to lose pay. You're using your life force energy in often difficult to observe and hear criminal cases, threatened with fear-based tactics by the court, frightened you may be targeted by those in the dock, and then they penny pinch you for compensation. Some people have lost their jobs due to jury service in times when a case goes on for too long. That staff member may be replaced in his or her job. Will the court compensate that? Of course not. Well, why are we tolerating it? And heaven forbid if you refuse, the law comes down heavy upon you. So yet again, the public are providing a service for the system. And yet again, the public loses out from that system, all whilst judges, lawyers divvy up the proceeds of the court. And we have to really start pondering of how we the people are rolled over financially and time-wise by services allegedly for our own benefit. But I see little to no benefit and at times losses from these engagements. Here is an idea that each one of you listening to this show can save money and also contribute to the TPC. Too often, and we all do it, myself included, we just accept the cost of bills and services provided to us and not calculate the costs that can be saved by taking a small portion of time to check comparative rates or prices. Phone bills, cable, auto, health, life and home insurance bills are just some example. And this applies heavily to credit cards as well. There are many zero interest cards for 12 to 18 months now, and some with extra cashback. And this is a great way to save on interest payments. And the interest you save can pay down your debt quicker and throw some dollars into the TPC. Well, how many of us take the time to see if we can save money each month? How many stay with the same companies and just roll over the bills and the renewals without taking a bit of time to see if we can save some money? So here is an idea all members can try. Look at all your bills and or renewals, and it'll only take 1 to 3 hours. Checking them all for savings, and I guarantee You will all be shocked at what you can save with a bit of time spent on it. I just saved near $700 a year on a mobile phone bill, $168 a year on my cable bill. Now imagine doing that with all the other bills. And the money that you save, put half of it back in your pocket and send half to the TPC each month on each bill saving. Like I said, you're only likely to take 3 hours maximum to go through all your bills and then go and search for savings. You get extra money in your pocket each month. And because it's a TPC based idea, some of those dollars saved can go towards the TPC each month. Don't stick with just paying for stuff that's unnecessary. Cut your own costs and you can help the TPC as well. And it's a win-win for us all. Some intel. An energy transmuting event was carried out on a global scale last Saturday. And I'm pleased to see and hear some of our members felt that effect. It is beneficial for those who have done their inner work. Those who haven't are being given another opportunity to correct their lack of. There has been several wheat and chaff events this year. Inner work done or not, exposed for all to see. Those who chase the money, exposed for all to see. Those who live for the old system and those who wish to be the change and create a new system, again exposed for all to see. No more hiding anymore. You all revealed yourself in your current status. For the ones on the better path, keep rolling and don't allow others to lead you astray. They will test you. Don't let them in. For the ones not versed in inner work, chased the money and wishing to keep the old system, the next stage for you. Final portion of tonight's show. I've always tried to do things the right way. Some agreed, some disagreed. But over time, people see we got things right far more than we did wrong. Alt media division is rarely based in fact and more based on who alt media personalities work for. I am targeted and discredited because I work for no one except the truth and the people. Far too many speak in terms of me, myself and I, and not we, are and us. And it's all down to personal insecurity, which is the main virus on this planet. And this is why we have to lift each other up, not drag each other down. We're in a society that seems to hate itself, seems to hate anything that's any good, seems to want everything to fail, and seems to want everything to be shite. But why do we do that to each other? What has it achieved? What is best? All of us in the gutter, or all lifting each other up? Nothing changes in life unless we change it. Nothing is built in life unless we build it. Nothing is achieved in life unless we achieve it. And nothing is lost in life unless we lose it. Nothing is accomplished unless we accomplish it. There is no dream unless you manifest it. There is no vision if you can't see it. There is no light at the end of the tunnel if you surround yourself in darkness. There is no hope if you mire yourself in illusion. There is no expansion if you only reach for the sky. The sky was never the limit. The limiting factor is all down to you. Do you contract or expand? Do you love or hate? Do you divide or combine? Do you fall or rise? That was never down to me or anyone else. That is down to you, you, and you. Do we continue to honour their contract or build our own tract without the con? A tract is a system of body parts or organs that act together to perform some function. We are the body parts. We are the organ to perform the function together. An organ is a key part of our inner working system, but an organ can make music and be played melodically and in harmony. We have to be that melodic, harmonious, musical organ going forward. Starting today. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. I'll probably see you all on Tuesday. Bye for now.